Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Customer Power BI session at the Microsoft Business Application Summit. I'm Lauren Faber from the Power BI Customer Advisory Team, and I am thrilled to have Shane McFarland from T-Mobile here to present today. Shane, to kick us off, could you tell us more about what we'll be going over today, who T-Mobile is, and your role within the company?
Hey, Lauren, absolutely. On behalf of T-Mobile for Business, I'm so excited to have the opportunity to engage in partnership with Microsoft and the discussion that all of us have been struggling with in BI analysis and reporting, the balance of control over the ecosystem between the admins and developers and end users. The new Center of Excellence is one that we must openly acknowledge is never going to be a static and unbending set of policies and rules. It's simply the next stage in corporate BI evolution that enables and empowers our developers and end users through a unique template strategy and back-end unified data set in Power BI. We're going to cover a ton of exciting ground today. T-Mobile is more than a company. We are a movement, one that has proven to bring more to the wireless customers of all carriers in the US. We also have this incredible internal culture. We take care of the customer first. For our sales and care teams, that is our true customers across businesses, government entities, and consumers. For my team, my customers, those sales reps and sales leaders. Every leader we have in the company has an open door policy, and each truly believes they are there to serve. Imagine that. When our CEO, Mike Sievert, gets on an all-hands call, he actually tells all of us to reach out if we need anything. Our EVP of T-Mobile for Business, Mike Katz, is the same way. Throughout the challenges we have all faced with COVID-19, at least once a week, I have heard him remind all of us to never hesitate to reach out for anything. We have such an incredible culture pulsing from every side of our business, and that includes all of our new peers from Legacy Sprint, with the merger having just completed over a month ago.
Thanks, Shane, for that intro. T-Mobile is one of the top companies in the world when it comes to Power BI usage. What led T-Mobile to Power BI initially?
For me, it all started with the trip to Minnesota. After my VP approved my ongoing search for the right product for our teams. And after attending the Power BI in a day, like many of you, my mind was racing with the possibilities that it held. Deploying, that was the challenge. T-Mobile was very siloed at the time. Each reporting organization for each organizational unit stood apart from each other. Everyone used their own tools that they found on their own on-prem servers, spanning multiple products, of course, and their own metrics and layouts. Engineering had a massive rollout of Power BI at that time, but it was very difficult to align on how to collaborate. 18 months later, after many had said they were simply not interested in using the tool, and with myself helping to find the silos that were willing to collaborate, I connected with Microsoft and set up the first T-Mobile specific Power BI dashboard in a day training. I hoped I could convince 15 people to come, which I promised Microsoft I would, and we ended up with an astounding 57 peers of mine that represented analysts which supported over 70% of T-Mobile organizational units managing reporting. My message to them was simple. We need to stop recreating the wheel, and that became the basis for the rollout of Power BI in our organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. So what is the challenge that you'll be going over today and the solution that you were able to come up with?
Moving into Power BI and away from the painful manual pivots and tables has been and continues to be an evolution that has to happen by simply learning how not to do it. I have an incredible mentor, Dave Carey, who once told me that 98% of all the knowledge is what you don't know you don't know. 2% you don't know, and the amount that you actually know doesn't even register. So my job has been to focus on moving as much of the 98% to the 2% as possible in search of the best possible tools for our teams. Our first foray into transition from Excel to Power BI for a primary report, long named the Daily Sales Report, quite unique, right, was a great experience overall, but we found it was still not the best we could do. Take a look at the word cloud to see some of the negative feedback we sought to resolve in our next generation.
There's got to be a better way. And there is, Kevin.
The solution was to not only create a template, but to draft this ecosystem that guides designers to the right style template, and in that process help each of us better define what our report should solve and why it matters, or what value it drives for the business. Furthermore, I did not take my ecosystem vision, as I call it, to a group that would decide to mandate. Instead, I brought it to the other SMEs at T-Mobile and said, here's my vision. How can we make it better? And is it a value for you? The response was simply overwhelming for me. So before we get to the demo, I want to note that I have an incredible team, including Stephen Vickers and Bill Heffley, along with the incredible partners across the organization, such as Andrew Whiteway, Drew Hampt, Arturo Silas, and Phil Ballard, all of whom have truly been crucial to this strategy. And lastly, the many Microsoft partners who have taken so much of their time in support of our mission to deliver powerful tools to our end users.
Yeah, making a more effective process for authors is a challenge that many companies face. I'd love to see the process of using that template that you've created to build a report. Would you be able to demo that?
Absolutely.
Now, during this demo, we are going to discuss the value of using a singular data set and the 3 tiers of report template layouts that are the foundation of this Power BI ecosystem strategy. Using the new lineage feature in Power BI, let's take a look at this sample workspace. Granted, we are only looking at a small number of reports, as these were rebuilt using fake metrics and data. However, I hope I am able to sketch a clear vision finding this templating and ecosystem strategy. All the reports sourced from the same data set. Keep in mind, a data set in Power BI is all of the model queries inside of a single PBIX file when you upload it from Power BI.
So now that you see the universal data set and how each of the reports are going to be supported by that singular set, let's next look at the empty template layouts that we're utilizing for our developers. We're going to start with the first one, which is the landing page. Now, before we begin, let's note that we do have row-level security built into these reports so that when they access this report, they're only seeing their metrics. Because of that, we don't have to worry about showing matrix and drill downs where a rep would have to go in and drill through every single layer of the organization all the way to the very bottom, giving them the highest click tax of everybody else. So in this landing page, we're showing only their metrics, and each of the visuals are pre-populated within the template for the developers. So if they choose to utilize the exact same visuals in the exact same layout that we have here, it's simply drag and drop, right? We've already got it connected to the data set, and so it's dragging those metrics that they want into that landing page. Now, the other key focus is that we want this landing page to support the following 2 types of reports, the drill through summary and drill through detail pages. Now, let's go to those real quick, and let's take a look at how they are built. Starting with the drill through summary, you can quickly see that we've moved from that portrait view to a landscape mode. Now, all of these are built to be printed out on exactly an 8.5 by 11 sheet, so that we are including the 1/2-inch margins on each side that a typical printer has restricted. So inside of this drill through summary, you can see that, again, we've got these KPIs up at the top, those general cards that are available. And then we have a couple of charts or visuals down towards the bottom, typically a timeline in the middle, plus in the bottom left and right-hand corner, we might have visual mapping, or we might have other type of charting as well. Now, it's important to note, while the landing page is going to include an aggregation of all of the different type of metrics that that person needs to see for that time cadence, this visual, or this report, I should say, includes only a specific category. And so if we're looking for, let's say, tasks, this would be a drill through summary that is only about the rep's tasks while they're prospecting or following up with their existing customers. And so with that in mind, whenever they access this report from the landing page or drill through from the landing page, they're bringing those filters with them, meaning when we build out this report, we don't have to filter it at all. We can leave it as wide open as possible so that when any person filters into it and brings a timeline with them, as well as who they are, their row level security, along with any other filters that were pre-selected, this visual or this report will automatically take those into account and summarize just their information for just that time period. Now, it is important to note, we'll take a look at these layouts at the very end with all of the information built in for the sample so that you can see the final output that we're able to create. Next, let's take a look at the drill through detail page. Now, this looks very similar to the previous page, and I'll go back and forth real quick, in that it's got the same layout and the same structure at the very top. However, you'll notice down at the bottom that we have two table visuals or matrix visuals that the developer can drag and drop into. That's because we intend this page to be where all of the details are, where they can get into specific transactions, look at specific customers or specific accounts, whatever that may be. Or if we're looking at a team health report, let's say, allows the manager to look at specific dealer codes or specific reps themselves. So in short, if we go to that page right before, the drill through summary is going to be based on one category, but it's going to be high level. Once they've looked at this, if they have any key questions, they can then drill through this report and arrive at the drill through detail report, where they can then look at the specific details of the transactions, bringing those new filters with them from the previous report. Now, I would like to add that all of these reports aren't meant to stay the exact same every single time. We want the end users to be able to see the information they need at the time they need it and for the reason they need it. And therefore, the developers do need the ability to evolve these reports into different sets so that those pain points can be solved. However, if we have a singular ecosystem coming from a singular data set, and we have these start out templates, knowing that the developers might make some changes to it, but ultimately utilize the same layout and the same look and feel to the reports, then we know that the ultimate ecosystem or the ultimate outcome of that ecosystem will be an incredible narrative for the end user that's clear, concise, and as easy to use as possible. We'll also talk later on about how the end users are able to access this in a much more clear way other than utilizing just powerbi.com, or I should say app.powerbi.com. Now, I do want to also note that we have a couple of additional features inside of these templates for the developers. One of those is the columns and gutters. As you can see here, each of these reports has a little gear at the very bottom of it, and I'll highlight that with the mouse right there so we can see this little gear right here. And when the developer clicks that gear, it turns on a background image of what we call the gutters and columns of columns and gutters. So we have a total of 12 columns with 13 gutters in between and at the ends that help you know where to put specific visuals. If we want to have a page that is as symmetrical as possible, then 12 columns allows the developer to be able to utilize either 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, or 6 columns, and have multiple visuals on a single row while keeping it symmetrical. It's important to note that this also makes sure that as the end user goes from one page to another, that we're keeping the same look and feel and the same overall structure throughout. So there's nothing that's out of context or out of line. The other thing to note is as a developer, it's very difficult to make sure that we're lining up everything to where it makes perfect sense and where it's matching all of the rest of the report. So this is that little helper for our developers, as well as myself, to be that guide that's clear and concise and shows where those visuals should go. Now let's cover briefly how these templates will actually be used to create those reports. So we're looking at the landing page template that we started with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag over that percent to quota metric, and I'm going to drop it in that top left metric visual. Once I drop it in, we can see that with the theming format already built out, it automatically chooses the font color and size and type for me for that title. And you can also see that there is an astounding percent right here. Keep in mind, once we get to the point where a rep actually logs into this report, I would note that that person is only going to see their number as opposed to the aggregate total. Just make sure that you are filtered down to the specific time period that you're looking for, so that when you do go in and actually access this report, it's only showing one person's number for one time period. Now let's take a look at what that full sample looks like at this point. So let's assume that I've went ahead and dragged everything else out. And here we are. Now we have a full landing page that includes all of the key metrics. And again, for the developer, it would be just drag and drop once they have the business requirements identified. So we can see up at the top that I've chosen specific metrics. Again, these are sample and not real metrics for our company, but sample metrics that this sample rep was being judged on. And we can see percents and total volumes of units and revenue up at the top, with a breakdown just below those visuals of what made up that percentage of that metric. Now, in this example, Lim, what I would recommend for any of you is while you're developing this ecosystem structure, focus on one specific person that actually has data in there, specifically or preferably somebody who has a high volume of records in there, and develop for just that one person. So as you can see here, I've already pre-filtered and pre-selected for Deborah. Now, once we get to the very end of this development, I would simply remove that filter so that when any person logs in, they would see their own number. The value to this is you get a much clearer insight into what you're needing to design and why you need to design it. Now, moving on from that, we can see that we also have additional metrics down below, such as tasks. Maybe this is for the rep determining how many times that they reached out to customers or prospects. And down below, let's say that this rep had a territory. Well, this would look at how many active customers or suspended customers, canceled lines, whatever that may be for that customer. And then a quick time period showing them how it's changed over time. Now, down at the bottom, this is also one of those ideas of how to engage your reps and help them better drive the business forward. Again, sample data, but this shows how when a rep last contacted their customers or prospects and how many days it's been since they've contacted their base. Now, over to the right, I've included a visual of what their actual territory map is. And when you hover over it, it simply tells you how many customers you have within that specific zip code. Now, once the rep has seen this report and they decide they want to drill through it, again, keep in mind this is a sample, and so some of these I can't show the full example of how the drill through occurs. But once they decide to drill through to the summary page, it's going to open up into this report. Now, assuming that they drilled through based on the number of events that they had, it's going to automatically filter down to that person in that time period. In this case, we can see up at the top that we have new metrics, how many times that they met with the prospect or with customers. So again, a further breakdown from what they initially saw, as well as how many times they met with the customer and the prospect. So meeting set and then actually met with the customer. And then below that, a time period showing of meet, set, and run by month and year. Now, if you're bringing a filter of time period with you and you don't want that filter to apply to this one, simply disconnect this visual from the interaction of that filter. Now, down below, I also show meeting activity by customer type and month and year. And then I've got another visual which doesn't honestly go well in this report. However, I love this as an example visual where you can see over time how the customer has interacted, how the rep has interacted with their customers and prospects based on meetings set and meetings run. And so it's a really cool example of ways that you can create a dynamic report that is capturing it can capture the rep's attention or the end user's attention, I should say. See how their activity has changed over time and where they focused on different areas for different time periods for different activities. Again, this could be a powerful way to be able to show the end users how they're investing their time towards selling their business or selling their products. Now, next, I want to go through the drill through details page that follows that event summary page that we just looked at. Now, as you can see in this sample, I actually combined both tasks and events in this details page, whereas the summary pages themselves live separately as their own. So task summary and then event summary. Now, inside this details page, we can see additional metrics up at the top as a highlight. And then down below, we can see two different types of tables. The first one showing by end of month, or by month, I should say, the number of calls, emails, meets run, meets set, and total activities by month or calendar time period. Next to that, we can see the breakdown of the same information by the person, and then underneath that person by the task type as well. You can also see that we have the breakdown over the past 5 months, and this is to prevent a horizontal scroll from left to right for either tables. So this gets us down to the bottom of the ecosystem and where they can actually drill through and find the actual details that they need. But we want to make sure that we don't start with this information. Why? Because it's a lot to consume, and the vast majority of our end users simply need to know their metrics or specific numbers. And we can give the reps the tools to be able to drill through these pages with filters already applied as they move from one to another.
Now let's talk about putting your Power BI reporting inside of Microsoft Teams. There are several benefits of doing that, both for the end user as well as the designer. One of the key benefits that benefit both sides is the URL itself. Now imagine if you had your own Microsoft Teams area that you were dropping these reports in. And for our group, we're going to say that we're looking at the MBAS sales channel as the Teams, and inside there that we have the frontline channel. Now, the frontline channel, I've added those 3 sample reports that we initially talked about: a landing page, a drill through summary, and a drill through detail page. Now, within there, one of the coolest parts of this is if the URL ever changes for these reports. As an example, let's say that the title for the report itself changes and you upload that report to replace a previous report, that will force the URL to change. There are many other ways that that can happen. Should that occur, as long as you're utilizing Power BI within Teams, the URL can simply be updated by going in, clicking on settings, and changing that URL. You can even change the name itself. That means that your end users will never even notice that the URL has changed, and they'll never have to worry about a broken link that occurs on their side. Now, as you notice, we can see that there's a little 1 right here as well. And this is the next really cool part of putting this in Teams that we've found. Adding the comments section, which is up here at the top right of the report, gives you the ability to have your end users respond or reply either to you or to a group of users or developers in case they have any specific questions. So here in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and record a simple GIF or a quick animation replying to this conversation and to this person. Now, we got this response from the user, and if you get a chance, take a look at what that user sent in. As a side note, that is actually my daughter that is responding to me in our personal license of Teams so that we could have a great demo environment without all of the other clutter that we're not allowed to show. And my daughter was able to give me a response that she's looking for a specific capability because her computer is not able to screenshot. Wait a second, that end user isn't looking for a specific ability. That end user is asking a designer to do the work for them since they're not able to do it the way they envisioned. Now, our thought process through that is to enable those end users instead of just simply providing them the answer. And so in this scenario, I've responded with text saying that, hey, unfortunately, we can't do that for you. However, great news, here's an attached animation to show you how to do it. Now, that attached animation is right here. And I'm going to let it run through real quick for you. And as you can see, it highlights copying the visual and selecting it and then going in and pasting it inside of a Word document. Now, creating that animation took me less than a minute to be able to add the additional text, crop it, edit it, and export it into a GIF. Unfortunately, because we are using that personal license of Microsoft Teams, I can't actually add the GIF on there for us. However, I would note that in our corporate environment, this is exactly what we're doing to respond to our end users when they have questions. The benefit, of course, is that not just that end user sees that response, but everybody does. Now, let's go back to that Teams environment because I want to look at a few other key things that are hugely important for us. Now, that text response that we just saw happened inside of the report, which is great because we know which report they're actually referring to in case the question is specific to that report. However, you'll also know that if you select the generic post section within that same channel, that those same comments appear there. So again, this gives us the ability to see both exactly where those comments are occurring and to understand exactly what happened before those comments within that very report, as well as to see that general view inside of the generic post within the channel. All users will see our updated response and understand those additional features or abilities. And we will also be able to capture those same GIFs and drop them in a file for additional training in the future or as quick reference documentation that we might embed in the report in the future. Now, another key call out that I want to make sure that I mention during this exercise, in the embedded links of Power BI reporting, you're not able to copy those same visuals. Now, if you do drop in the standard URL for that report inside, just as a standard website within Microsoft Teams, you are able to utilize the copy visual feature. So I did want to note in this case where I utilized that embedded URL, unfortunately, that copy visual wasn't possible. However, I simply created a replica of the exact same page utilizing the full URL to create that demonstration that we saw on the animated GIF.
Awesome, Shane. Thank you so much for that demo. I've heard you're really big on building strong communities. What are some of the things that you've done to establish a Power BI community within T-Mobile?
It's a great question. And one of the coolest parts about this outreach campaign with Power BI and trying to grab all of these different organizational groups and engage them in Power BI training is that it led to a SME group, which acts like an advisory council for all BI groups within T-Mobile and connects a few times a month. We discuss all things Power Platform, share templates and innovative ideas, and enjoy frequent attendance from our Microsoft partners.
Perfect. As we're wrapping up, is there any final things you'd like to add?
One of the final things I would love to add is when you go to build an ecosystem like this, especially when you're including row-level security, try to build for a specific person first. Find that one rep or that one manager that has enough activity and build specifically for them. And once you get to the end of that build, then undo that filter so that everybody has access to it. That's one of the key ways that I found to create a powerful report, and especially when we're looking at an ecosystem like this, a powerful way for them to be able to understand the full narrative.
Perfect. I love that advice. I just want to end by saying a huge thank you, Shane, for your time today and for all of your effort in preparing your presentation. I know that there's a lot of valuable material that you shared with us today, so thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. We absolutely enjoyed being here as well, and I really appreciate the opportunity.